As you said, just to introduce people, I'm Robert Curran. I'm a consulting analyst with Appledore Research. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen a huge amount of investment going into or being committed to build out AI infrastructure. But ultimately, AI depends on data, and transporting data around a country or across the globe is exactly what telcos do. So that's one of the questions we're going to look at in this discussion is what's the role of telcos in this AI gold rush? And what are the demands that AI is going to place on tomorrow's networks? I hope we'll get into a final question on what it's all going to cost as well. However, to help discuss this topic, I have an excellent panel today. Three panelists. I will ask them to introduce themselves. Maybe Yue, Olivier, and then Inanç, perhaps in that order.
Hello, good morning. This is Wang from China Telecom. I'm the Chief Technologist on Network and AI. Now it's called Next Generation ICT Infrastructure. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Good morning. I can continue. So I'm Olivier, working for Orange. I'm in charge of basically AI for network.
This is Inanç Çakiroğlu, Group CIO, VEON, and they're mostly focusing on the AI data and analytics.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much. Just before we started, I did a quick check. I think between you, you account for almost approaching 1 billion subscribers. So it's so no pressure, but obviously your strategies and your thoughts on AI are going to be impacting a lot of people. So I think listeners can be assured that you have a lot of skin in the game, as they say. Yue, perhaps I can start with you and really get into the heart of the matter. How do you see AI shaping networks and network operations?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the question. I mean, I usually like to talk about the AI applications into two areas. So the first type is AI for the network. So this is where AI is used to improve the network itself. For example, to the fault detection, anomaly detection, network optimization. These are the applications used within the network to help improve the quality of the services, reduce the failure, enhance operational efficiency, reduce OpEx. And then the second type, which I think is emerging, is the AI built on top of the network and supported by the network, empowered by the network. For those emerging AI services, they of course depend on the network to run. So for example, immersive AR, VR, robotics, but also they require not only the communication resources, but also the compute resources, and they must work together in the real time. And I think this is where AI is really transforming the role of the network. And so, traditionally, our network was a connectivity pipe, right? So even with those new use cases we talked about in 5G, the role of network mainly is due to serve that connectivity to become faster and lower latency, etc. But now I think with the emerging AI services, we need both the communication and compute to be inherently integrated into one converged platform. And we think this is really turning the network into a platform that hosts the data, intelligence, communication, and computational resources in a unified manner. So the network can now both support the connectivity workload and the AI workload simultaneously. And then on top of it, it's an opportunity for the operators to be able to build the new services and to generate the new revenue streams. So I think to sum up, the AI is shaping the network in two ways. One is, of course, to enhance the operation management customer services through the AI used within the network. And then the second aspect is to transform the network itself from just providing connectivity to now into a platform capable of supporting the AI services and workloads by orchestrating both the connectivity and then the compute resources. And I think this shift has a bigger impact not only on the architecture of the network, but also on the role of the operators and the network into the broader AI ecosystem.
Yeah, we'll start to get there. I see my fellow panelists nodding with many of your comments there about the establishment really of a platform combining data and compute and so on. Olivier, maybe I could follow that point through with you. I mean, one of the things that we're picking up a lot in our discussions with operators and vendors is this central role that data plays. We've often talked about data in various locations around the network, the use of inventory data to understand the network and so on, but all the full performance data that exists. But we're seeing a definite change. Maybe I could ask you, how do you see those considerations about data changing your own strategy at Orange? Obviously, you have data in your job title, so it should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Robert. Actually, you cannot do AI without data. It's really obvious. And maybe I can start with the good news. The good news is that there is a huge volume of data that is generated every day by network equipment and network probes. In Orange, we evaluated that we generate around 1 petabyte of data every day across the 26 countries. So this is huge. The bad news is that currently we are not using this data at full potential. We are using only a very limited set of it. Especially we are using obviously the ones that are generated by probes, a bit by equipment, but you also have logs, call traces, this kind of stuff that is currently used for troubleshooting, but not generally used with AI. So what we need to do is to make this data more accessible, more available across the company, and not only in the, I would say, network silo that the data belongs. I give this example because network has different domains: radio access network, fixed access network, transport, IP, and so on. Currently, IP people, for instance, use their own data. Radio access network people use their own data, and we need to break this silo. And in order to break this silo, you need to do basically two things. The first is the tooling. You need to manage your data in modern tools that create the capability to manage the access to the whole company in a way that encourage really the data to use. You also need to organize your data with network digital twins, for instance, in a way that you can put different domains and you see the relation between different domains. It's really useful for root cause analysis, for troubleshooting, for anomaly detection, for instance. And you also need to change your culture of the company. And we have a program that we call Data Democracy in Orange. And the goal of this program is to make sure that each and every data owner thinks about how he can use its own data, obviously, but also how he can, let's say, put that into marketplace in a way that everybody in the company could request the access to this data. And when you combine good tooling and good organization, good culture, trainings, and so on, then you start to be able to, let's say, leverage the fantastic capabilities of AI for the network, especially for network operation.
We'll talk a little later, Olivier, about where some of that goes, but that's a very interesting strategy, kind of multi-stranded strategy on data and how that's supporting the AI strategy. Inanç, maybe I could also pick up on something that you mentioned a moment ago, which is about opportunity and where the impact of AI is really being felt. Is that more in the customer facing areas? We're seeing quick win potentials in there. But is it more in that area than in network infrastructure and network operations, or how do you see the impact of AI affecting these different parts of the business?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Let's start with that. We observe AI progress in almost all areas at the same time. But if we are looking for a very short statement for the question, I can say that in customer-facing AI, volume is big. In network-facing AI, the value is big.
Okay.
If we are talking about the global scale across all industries, of course, number of use cases number of AI use cases in all other areas, in the customer-facing areas, basically, are much more than number of use cases in the network infrastructure. But before coming to that, I think we should define it. We should discuss about what do we mean by AI when we are talking about AI. Truly speaking, AI has been on the stage for more than several decades already. It started with the rule-based deterministic models, as you know, and it came to machine learning and the deep learning techniques. And in terms of AI in telco, we have been using AI for more than 2 decades. And in telco operation, let's say they're starting with the churn prevention models, upsell and the cross-sell activities, best offers, propensity models, recommendation engines, predictive models, and the traditional machine learning, deep learning models, techniques. Then we came to ticket categorization, network optimization, anomaly detection. So almost all telco or all technology or the digital companies, all customer-faced business operation has been going through AI already for the last 2 decades. And in terms of number of use cases through so-called traditional AI in customer-facing area, of course, it is more than number of use cases in the network infrastructure, but it doesn't change the fact that impact is substantially high when we apply AI in terms of network operation. And now we are talking about Gen AI. You know, the Gen AI is a hype topic, and if you just ask somebody about the AI, everybody is just thinking about the AI on the Gen AI side. We started to see more customer-facing benefits, conversational agents, agentic applications, hyper-personalization. By the way, this is the future of the AI. Again, number of use cases are on the customer-facing application side on Gen AI higher. But with the introducing agentic AI, soon we will be seeing more network infrastructure use cases, a kind of agents as a network engineer, agents as an operation engineers and the planners. Why so? Because telco business lays over huge and expensive and extensive network infrastructure. And for any kind of optimization that you think of, that you bring improvements in network operation side, it has a huge effect on the customer satisfaction and the cost optimization. This is a great benefit. And I believe we are unique as telco operation. We are not like financial institutions, or we are not like any other, the banking or the retail institutions. We have a direct leverage applying AI on the customer experience side, improving the quality of service, improving the latency, improving on the drop call. So this is our potential advantage on the application of the AI on the network side.
Yeah, I think your point about volume and value is very important and very interesting. A lot of time, we hear a lot of conversations about where is the value, and as you say, the number of use cases perhaps in a network context is less than in a customer service, customer-facing context. But the consequence of that, particularly on things like customer experience as measured in satisfaction, seems pretty high.
That's right.
I just want to pick up on something that you said about telecom being different. It's one of the sort of underlying themes in some of the research I do, is trying to understand how different is telco. Is telecom more different or less different than it used to be? And AI, I think there's a lot to learn from how other industries are using AI, even beyond the customer front office context. Given your background and so on, do you think that telecom should look a little bit more widely at what other industries are doing? Or do you think the telecom has enough of its own unique problems to really just focus on what it knows itself? Well, how would you encourage people to look at the wider AI community, if I can call it that?
Truly speaking, there are always lots of lessons learned to be got from the other industries. This is basically transfer learning, actually, as we train our models in the AI side. And there are a lot of the variety of the use cases. And our business is not anymore telco. We don't define the VEON as for example, the telco operator. Of course, in the core there is a telco operation, but we state ourselves a digital experience and the digital service provider in the industry. So speaking of that, there are lots of other digital industries, and there are also the other digital services that we can just directly, adapt some, the use cases. But apart from that, the availability of the data, of the existing use cases, and the complexity of the infrastructure, it puts us a unique position that even, just focusing on our own infrastructure, on all the customer base, we have hundreds and thousands of the use cases that we can come up. And we can also utilize and leverage the data and create the many different AI applications and the AI models, which is what we have been doing, let's say, last 2 decades.
Yeah, interesting. Olivier, Inanç, alluded to something that I think sometimes gets a little bit overlooked in discussions around AI, which is the distinction between inference and training. It's something that perhaps we all are somewhat aware of, but perhaps we're not quite so aware of how that places different demands on the network and your strategy for how you work with data. Is that something you can give us an insight on? How do you separate those two function capabilities, and how does that influence how you approach your questions about data?
Yeah, sure. I think Inanç already introduced the difference between traditional AI, that I like to call predictive AI, and generative AI. And we should look at this question about training and inference a bit differently in traditional versus generative. So if I start with traditional AI, we are generally using a relatively small model, things like ARIMA, ARIMAX, autoencoder, the stuff that exists for quite a long time now, but that are still good, for instance, to predict the evolution of a KPI or to detect that the pattern, for instance, of a given counter or KPI start to be off. And for this relatively small model, we are using a similar infrastructure for training and inference. And the reason is that training, you can do that with relatively low resources. And so you can use a couple of GPUs and train your model, and you can use the same GPUs for the inference part. GenAI is different because GenAI usually use a large language model, and these models are really big, and they require a lot of resource for the training. And here you have two different strategies among operators. Some operators, like SKT, for instance, decided to build their own foundation model. And in order to do so, they need very large volume of GPUs and resources for the training part. Some other operators, and Orange is among them at this stage at least, we are not building our own foundation model. We are sometimes doing fine-tuning, changing a bit the model, but not do the initial training that require a lot of resources. So we don't need very large GPU data centers. And for inference, you need a little bit less resource. So you still need GPUs, but you can either, for non-critical use cases, use external cloud, for instance, to manage this inference. And for critical use cases, generally, you need to have your own GPUs in your own data centers. So this is what we do. And with this strategy, especially excluding or not generating ourselves our foundation model, at this stage, we do not really need a very large internal data center with GPUs. And finally, your question was also about the impact on the network design. So the current situation is that AI and GenAI is at the beginning of the curve. And at this stage, we did not have really to change the design of the network. We see that we have more and more traffic between data centers, but not so much at the access side. But this may come with time. I think we already introduced that. With AI ramping up, we may have to do some change in the network design if the traffic patterns start to really change a lot.
Well, I guess that depends a lot on the applications. The piece that Annie introduced this morning about Comcast was kind of interesting, leaning in that direction, but there's still a big question mark over what kinds of applications, particularly as we get into devices or autonomous vehicles. I don't mean self-driving cars, but all kinds of surveillance, monitoring, safety equipment, and so on at the edge of the network, maybe making use of AI. Yue, can I just follow through on that same point with you about the different needs of inference and training are affecting how you're architecting your networks? Because you talked a lot at the initial discussion about a kind of single compute fabric. How does that change how you think of as domains in the network?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, I think Olivier mentioned, the network traffic is changing, and the AI, because of the AI impacts to the network. Traditionally, we have this north-south traffic. Now it's becoming, east to west. The traffic between the data centers are increasing. So I think that is one of the impact. And another impact we have observed is, how traditionally we have the big AI models trained at the cloud, and then we have the essentially the network is acting as a connectivity pipe, just delivering the data to the center, right? And now we do see the edge is playing a more important role where you can actually bring the inference closer to the user, and that helps to increase the privacy. It also helps to increase reduce the latency. And we do see, with these terminal edge and the cloud infrastructure, it is helping to support and empower the new AI cases. And robotics is one of the cases I'm most passionate about. It's really exciting to see, this robot on the move, because it requires both mobility and the compute support, and you want that compute to be close enough to the user because of the latency issues and privacy issues. So I do see, that sort of deployment of the computational resources to the edge and closer to the user is one of the trend of the deployment of the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and I think you're right there. I've long held the view that the step change in how networks were used already happened. It was video. Now we're seeing video and AI, and exactly as you're describing, some of that video stays local, some of it moves regionally, some of it has to come back to the center, and so we're seeing a new vector, if you like, on how the networks are being used as a combination of AI and video for all the examples you're talking about. Robotics is a great example. Everyone is always interested to understand, what examples there are of real benefits. Inanç, I think you have some things that you can share on operational results from using AI.
Yeah.
Give us an idea what sort of benefits that you're seeing, what sort of outcomes you're seeing.
Yeah, sure. Let's start with listing the use cases that we are working on and that we have been working on. And the very first and the simple basic application of the AI, usually the journey is starting with that one, ticket complaint classification, anomaly detection in the IT network and the network infrastructure, sentiment analysis of the customer conversation between customer to call center, speech to text-to-speech models, and also let's say the email and the written communication, fraud management, definitely detection of the fraud patterns through supervised or unsupervised the machine learning techniques, customer trouble, auto discovery, the models, fault prediction in network side before a fault is happening, fault recovery prioritization on the operational management side. So those are all related with the very basic and the very first startups of the applying applicable AI. And when we are coming to the network side, a little deeper, AI-based network planning, network capacity planning, self-organized networks, those are the basic and actually the advanced use cases that we are working on. And speaking about outcomes, the first thing I can say, transformation of the workforce. For all fields, we used to use real engineers, for the level 1 support, for the level 2 support, for the prioritization of the tickets and all those kind of management on the background in our operational centers. Now with AI, we don't need that many people on level 1 or the level 2 support in service desk operation. And apart from the not needing that many people, accuracy is better and the response time is incredible better, much more better than the previous applications. And this is a unique opportunity for us. We basically, with AI, we free all skilled engineers for high-value tasks rather than just replacing them. So I should emphasize this. We don't replace anybody by AI. Actually, we don't just lay them off. We are just shifting them and transforming them for the more skillful tasks that we need. So this is one great outcome. And another aspect, there are some areas like sentiment analysis. It is impossible to do that with the human force. It is impossible to analyze all conversation between the enterprise and the customers manually. But together with the AI, we are now capable of it. So we can analyze all ongoing customer conversation between the enterprise, between our business, and between our customers using AI. And this is very well use case, incorporating huge volume of data and the complexity of the data. As a human being, you cannot just go over all your data to understand some fraud patterns or predict a failure in your network. But now we are capable of that. And it is not just a kind of an improvement, but it is now ability to that operation, that specific part of the operation. And if I need to spell out some figures, some metrics, optimization is usually between 10% and 30% when we apply AI capabilities in network side, in IT side, in any business operation, including. And we have direct improvement on the false negatives and the false positives up to 50%. When in all the cases that when we incorporate the AI rather than the traditional approaches. Even in one of our operation, fault prediction, the AI-based fault prediction, it reduced outage minutes by 5%. Maybe 5% when you think about the figure, it doesn't sound so much, but it means that the thousands of customers, they stay connected during the peak hours. So this is a direct and a very huge outcome. And in all our, let's say, the post-analysis, AI has at least 10 times higher lift than traditional deterministic rule-based models in the fraud management and the customer auto-discovery and the troubleshoot models. So this is also another the direct outcome. And again, I mean, the fault prediction and the similar more complex advanced analytic use cases, since it is almost not possible to achieve those outcomes using without AI, AI has a direct impact on our operation and our success in our market. So apparently, it's going to be the future of at the basis of all our operation in all our operational landscape in different countries.
Fascinating, very comprehensive range of examples there. Very interesting. Olivier or Yue, are there any areas that you would feel happy sharing maybe a snippet or two of areas of improvement, if not actual improvement just yet, but certainly expectations? Where do you think you're most likely to see or perhaps are already seeing the benefits of using AI?
I mean, a quick example in terms of the AI used for energy saving, I think that's a widely used example in network operation and the reduction on OPEX. I think usually the figure is 20 to 30%, depending on the network context. So I think that's a huge saving to the operators' operational cost.
Yeah. Olivier, anything you point out to?
Yeah, actually, there are many areas. I would energy optimization is an obvious one. I fully agree with Yui. Network planning, maybe less known, but for network planning with AI, instead of predicting the overall evolution, for instance, of the traffic on a given region or let's say city, you can predict, for instance, the traffic evolution for each and every cell or for each and every sector. And with that, you can really optimize the way you plan your upgrade, adding new frequency, adding new RRU, take into account a lot of different drivers, because you can also put in the AI engine some geo-marketing data. If you know, for instance, that there will be a shopping mall coming in a given place in 6 months or 1 year, you can take this into account really in the accurate sector capacity. And AI is also there a fantastic tool. Network operation in general and network optimization in general as well. So there are many areas that will really transform the way we really operate the network.
It's an overused word, transform in telecom quite often, but certainly from what I'm hearing today, it's perfectly justified. Just a reminder to the people listening in or watching in, if you're watching live, we do have time for questions towards the end. We've got plenty more questions. I could talk with this panel all day, but if you do want to ask a question, just put it into the panel below. So another question I wanted to ask, given the sort of work that you have all done already, I mean, what are you learning, or what are your recommendations for other operators, perhaps people who are 2, 3, 5 years behind where you guys are, as they're thinking about formulating an AI strategy or involving in network operations. Is there any particular learning point or two, perhaps, that you would like to share? Something you wish you'd known 3 or 4 years ago. I know it's all changing, but Olivier, maybe I could put you on the spot first on that one. What would you say is a key learning point that people should really take to heart right now?
Yeah, maybe I can start with a very common mistake that many companies have done, including us, is when starting to leverage AI at scale, you think about, okay, what do I need to hire as skills? And you think about data scientists, because you think AI is AI model, and who does the AI model? It's data scientists. And then you realize that your data scientists that you have hired, so you have a new team of 20 data scientists, they need data to work, and they need use cases. And the data scientist himself will not build the use cases. And so we realized at this stage that first we needed to really manage correctly our data, to expose them, to put them in tools that are good enough to really manage the model, the training, the inference, manage the drift, and so on. And so you also need to work with your network expert to build the use case. You need to work with cloud expert to manage the data. You need to work with data engineers. And only at this stage, the data scientists will go and start to build the right use case and to create value. Maybe another advice is to prioritize with value. You need a very good methodology because you can think about thousands of use cases, honestly. But the real question is by which use case you start with. And I think the best answer to that is you start with the use cases that will deliver value, the highest value in the quickest time. So you need to be really disciplined in assessing for each and every use case the value that it will give you, and you make your backlog with that, not trying to embrace all the use case at the same time. Maybe these are the two advice that I would have for the community.
Very, very helpful. Yue, what would be your key takeaway, key learning point from the last 3-5 years?
Yeah, sure. I think that's very good insights from Olivier first of all. And I think one of the points I wanted to make is that every operator is different. The skill side, the organization, the platform, the scale of investment is different. So the strategy that works for one may not mean it works for the others. But I agree with Olivier, about the common factors like start small and prove the value, because I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment is that it's really hard to pinpoint exactly, if we make this investment, this is a cost, and this is going to be the return we expect. Driving innovation in a lot of cases means there may be some uncertainty. So begin with some of the focused use cases and to be able to show measurable benefits, for example, the reduced downtime, the lower OPEX, faster response, etc., customer return, to build that confidence and to be able to have the continued investment and the support of the initiative, because the continuation of the initiative is actually very important. Sometimes you can't see an immediate benefit, maybe for 1 year, 2 years, but it has to stick to the action, and then you will see the benefit that brought by AI. And the second point I think Olivier also touched upon is on the data. I think it's quite important to build that data foundation. I mean, we all know data is so important. High quality, well-labeled data helps to facilitate the scaling of AI tremendously. But then on the other hand, the effort and the challenges of streamlining the data operation is quite significant. So I think make that investment and effort upfront, building a data platform, streamline the data operation. This makes the process of, data collection, storage, governance, and before that, you scale up the AI initiatives to build a good foundation. And then talking about the good foundation, I think a good infrastructure is also a key. We talked about how infrastructure is evolving with the integration of AI. Without a good infrastructure, it's hard to imagine some of the innovation that build on top of them and the new services that it can empower. So I think this is one of the other areas I would recommend to invest. But of course, this means a massive investment upfront. So how to best use the current infrastructure and how to smoothly transform it into the AI infrastructure, I think is going to be one of the interesting challenges we need to address.
That's moving. Inanç, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a learning point, a key takeaway from the last few years, and then I know we have some questions in as well, so I'll be asking those in just a moment. What would be your advice?
I totally agree. I think the starting point should be the use case, and it's of course another aspect of to think that 90% of all the data science or the AI activities, the most of the effort is spent on the preparation of the data and the cleaning of the data, and you should be sure that it's not just availability of the data, it is the quality of data. And the quality of the data plus the use case, I think this is the most important aspect. But the other thing about the AI, it's not just implementing some use cases or the creating and the generating some advanced analytic model at the AI models, but also upskilling your workforce. I mean, the AI is something like electricity for the future. So you cannot operate, you cannot just let your employees to work in in your offices without using the AI tools and having the knowledge about it and the ethical usage of that, responsible usage of that. So it's a kind of and we don't have a kind of a workforce which is just a graduate just a fresh graduate from the university and the very talented on the technology. We have also lots of people who are just introduced by AI and they doesn't have any experience to use it. If you are talking about the general landscape. So the usage of the AI for the day business, for the daily tasks, because the AI, it doesn't replace you directly, but the person with the AI will replace person without AI. So this is another aspect. And of course, the return of investment of the use case is a very important topic. And most of the time we have been focusing heavily on the let's say the cost optimization side, which is great, which is good. But I think another focus should be generating revenue through AI. And using AI, actually, our methodology for AI is not artificial intelligence. We use AI as augmented intelligence. We think that AI capability and the AI leverage is augmenting our existing services into a better level. So the thing and the aim and the clarity of the purpose should be making doctors better doctors, making nurses better nurses, making farmers better farmers using of the AI. So I think we should position our use cases and we should position on all our activities and all the new AI applications, but the services should be also considered this factor.
Yeah, interesting. So the upskilling again. Olivier talked about that a little bit in the Kids of Orange. And also thinking about the end customer, which is always important. Okay, we do have some questions in. I have loads more, but I will give some questions here that have come in while we've been talking. First question is, what should be the strategy for allocating GPUs? Should it be based on network topology, node architecture, or functional requirements? Does anyone have a view about GPU allocation strategy? You're thinking about that one. Olivier, go ahead.
The first thing that you need to look at to define this strategy is about whether you would prefer to allocate the GPU in a central area, like a large data center, for instance, which is the traditional way of allocating GPU, or if you want to leverage a more distributed deployment, like with leveraging the edge of the network. And it depends on your use case. So generally, doing things centrally is easier from a cost perspective, but maybe may have some limitation if you have a requirement in terms of sovereignty, for instance, or in terms of really low latency, this kind of stuff. So I would say it depends on your use case. I think all the large AI user will leverage GPU in data centers with liquid cooling and so on. You know, the way that you can deploy a lot of GPU, especially if you're doing a lot of training. If you're doing a lot of, let's say, really critical use case in terms of sovereignty, in terms of latency, in terms of security, then you may choose some more edge deployment, especially for the inference. And then you will allocate only few tens or hundreds of GPU, not thousands or tens of thousands like in data center, but in a distributed way.
Okay. So follow the use case really is the answer to that question.
I have one addition to that topic. I think we should also consider rising trend of small language models. Whatever we are talking about, and in our reality, we are all talking about the large language model, which on the inference and the training level, they are all dependent on the big GPU farms. But I believe the future of these AI applications and the future of the AI will be heavily based on the small language models rather than just using the large language models for all aspects. We will have more small language models working on the edge without any need for the specific or the big farm of GPU and on the customer device, on the edge device. So I think there will be a twofold of topology, one for the large language models for sure, I mean for more generic applications, and the small language models for some specific and some focusing applications that we don't need the big farms at the big data centers. So this is on the right side from our side.
Understood. It's a good point, and clearly still a developing area. I've seen some very good papers on the effectiveness of small language models compared to large language. Really fascinating stuff. Okay, we have another question which was also on our original list. I'm going to paraphrase slightly. The question really is about investment in AI, and specifically from a CFO type perspective. Telecom is still getting to terms with the 5G investment and payback and that sort of thing. So it's a little wary of big investments generally in technology. How does that conversation go in your organizations, or how do you think it goes at a sort of finance level? How are your, given what we said a moment ago about the need to start small but scale up, how do you invest? How do you justify the investment? How does a finance person justify the investment to shareholders? And what's the right sort of expectation to be setting for the spend on AI by telcos? I'm sorry, I said I would paraphrase and then asking a longer question than the questioner actually asked, but that was the intention of it. How do we work out how to fund this is the question.
Yeah, maybe I can make a start. Well, I think we acknowledge, when it comes to supporting the new AI services and integrate AI into the infrastructure, it means investment, and especially the previous question we talked about GPU deployment, and in order to support AI, we need to acknowledge that is a big investment we need to put into the network. Not to mention, when you run the GPU and data centers, it also costs quite a significant power. So I think that we all agree. But then on the other hand, from our perspective, we also think AI is not a option. So in the sense that the infrastructure has to evolve in order to support the new AI services, in order to put the operator into the AI ecosystem. So basically what that means is, how in the past all the models are trained in the cloud, and then the network is providing that connectivity. The traffic may be increasing with the new AI services, but it doesn't necessarily be because the network is a best effort service, and the operators are providing such good connectivity. So the increasement of the new AI services, the traffic increasement brought by the new AI services, may not bring that much revenue stream to the operators. But then on the other hand, we talked about the deployment of the edge compute and then be able to support the new AI services. And I think that's a good opportunity where the operators can tap into the AI ecosystem. So it's not just the hyperscalers and the AI services and the AI apps built on top of it. Now there is a role of the operators to play to be able to provide a platform that can orchestrate both the computation and the connectivity resources and to be able to generate the new revenue stream. So I think, of course, the deployment of the edge helps with the latency privacy, but also I think it's a very good opportunity for the operators to tap into the new AI ecosystem.
Okay. I'm conscious of our timing here. I do have one last quick question. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of questions we haven't had time to get to today, but let me just ask one last quick question, please, for you, which is really about your reliance on in-house skills versus partners. You mentioned the word ecosystem UA. Can you just, in a sentence or two, give me a sense of how much you're relying internally versus looking at external companies to support you on this AI journey? Inanç, maybe you would start, and then Olivier, and then UA.
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty controversial topic.
Okay, sorry.
It's a trend in our industry. I mean, most of the enterprises, we would like to build our own teams and to realize our use cases using our own capabilities and the capacity. And up to a certain aspect, it is understandable because AI is something you really invest in-house in your organization. And again, it's not just developing something or realizing some use cases, it's also upskilling your employees, equipping your teams with the strong tools, improve your capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. But there are a couple of pitfalls we need to be very careful about. One of them is not to fall in not invented here syndrome. We should avoid this at all costs. In other words, you should pick your battle. Choose the areas you really need to build your competencies, in-house applications, and be right to find partner and to solution partner from your ecosystem for the others. Speaking of ecosystem, it is not just the big vendors, small vendors, but it is basically a kind of a vibrant ecosystem that we are talking about with startups, with industry, academy, institutions, government entities, your industry stakeholders and the communities. And sometimes this is the reality. A startup partnership may unlock something which a big vendor couldn't. We have multiple examples of it. So it is not just sort of a skill set you need to utilize. It is also enriching your, let's say, the data landscape, enlarging your use case base, and generating a feedback loop for all your applications and for your AI, let's say, workloads. So, but there is one caveat here. I really would like to say something to all the vendors on the third parties, which is listening to this, the conversation. I was on the other side of the table for a while, and I know how difficult to convince a client for a solution, or how difficult to to build a solution and to selling a product. But on the other hand, what I see at the market, all the solutions, they already started to look alike. I mean, almost everybody is trying to position same product, same offering, with similar architecture, similar under the hood technologies, similar use cases. Sometimes from enterprise customer perspective, we cannot see the differentiation points. So what I can advise to ecosystems, differentiate yourself. Try to find genuine use cases, something different than others. And another advice is there are lots of hyper-personalization content I can see, but be sure that whatever you create through, let's say, Gen AI, it shouldn't be understandable from 1 meter away that is generated by the AI. Because, I mean, we should little bit tweak the technology and having a better use of the technology. And I think this is a great outcome for the third parties, which is, stick to that.
Okay, we are out of time. Unfortunately, that's an excellent answer. I knew we could talk all day on this topic. I look forward to talking with you all again soon. Many questions we didn't get to in the chat today. Apologies for that, but I look forward to maybe having you all back, and maybe I'll come back myself if Annie allows me on a future occasion. Thank you so much.